Welcome to the deep dive. Imagine for a moment, right, that everything you thought you knew about the universe's beginning, and maybe its end,
Hmm.
was actually just, I don't know, one small chapter.
Yeah, like a single part of a much, much bigger story.
Exactly. Forget the singular Big Bang as the absolute ultimate origin point.
It's a big conceptual leap.
It really is. Today, we're plunging into a truly revolutionary idea. It shifts our whole perspective on reality, really.
Hmm.
It comes from Philip Randolph Lillian's work, The Big Emergence, Recursive Cosmogenesis, and the Hyperfractal Universe.
And this framework, it introduces what Lillian calls a coherence-driven way of looking at the cosmos. It really challenges some of our most fundamental assumptions.
A coherence-driven framework.
It's a profound shift in how we might understand existence itself.
So our mission today, in this deep dive, is to try and unpack this pretty mind-bending concept for you.
Yeah, break it down a bit.
We'll explore how the universe might not have a fixed age, or even a single origin point, and how everything we perceive, space, time, galaxies, maybe even life, could be part of this ongoing kind of recursive unfolding.
An unfolding of something more fundamental, coherence.
Right. Get ready for a journey that, well, it might just rewire how you think about the cosmos. We'll guide you through the core ideas.
Highlighting the surprising bits, the implications.
Yeah, and hopefully leave you with a completely new perspective. Okay, let's jump right in. The first, frankly astonishing claim here is that the universe, according to Lillian, doesn't begin with a single Big Bang.
Right. That's the headline grabber, isn't it?
It absolutely is. It's a
Yeah.
huge departure from, well, what most of us learned.
Yeah.
So if not a single Big Bang, what does the Big Emergence propose instead? What's the core difference?
Well, the fundamental idea is that the universe emerges from something Lillian calls an omnilectic coherence field.
Omnilectic coherence field. Okay.
Yeah, think of this as the ultimate foundational source, pure potential, perfect unity, underlying everything. And from this field, reality unfolds. But it unfolds through what he describes as recursive, hyperfractal, big emergence events.
Okay, recursive, hyperfractal, big emergence events. So not one bang, but a series of emergence events driven by this coherence idea.
Exactly, multiple unfoldings.
Help us understand coherence here.
Mhm.
Is it like harmony or fundamental order?
Precisely. Yeah, coherence in this context is about fundamental order, unity, resonant alignment. It's sort of the opposite of randomness or chaos.
Right.
In standard cosmology, the Big Bang is seen as the absolute beginning of everything, space, time, matter, the whole shebang.
Right, time zero.
But in this model, that familiar Big Bang gets reinterpreted. It's just one coherence inflection.
Coherence inflection.
Yeah, a significant moment of unfolding, definitely, but not the origin of all reality.
So a ripple, not the source of the pond.
Kind of. The universe actually emerges cyclically and non-linearly through transitions within this deeper coherence field, like different resonance layers being activated.
Different layers. Okay, that immediately changes the whole narrative, doesn't
It really does.
So if the universe isn't this linear story with one beginning, but more like a spiral, as you said, infinite renewal, what does that mean for space and time themselves? Are they also part of this emergence?
They absolutely are. And that's another huge shift. We usually think of space and time as this fixed background, right? The stage.
The container, yeah.
But the big emergence suggests they are not primal. They are outcomes of coherence reduction.
Coherence reduction. So as the coherence lessens, space and time appear.
Sort of. Imagine that completely undifferentiated ocean of pure potential, the omnilectic field. As this field reduces its perfect unity, as it differentiates into localized forms, space and time actually appear.
Wow.
They are secondary products, like ripples on that ocean rather than the ocean itself.
So they're not fixed containers, but emergent properties of this deeper reality.
Yeah.
That's quite a shift.
It is.
And if there are multiple big emergence events, does that imply there could be multiple observable universes, maybe coexisting or happening at different times, whatever time means then?
Yes, exactly. The framework implies the cosmos might host multiple big emergence events. They could be happening, simultaneously in some larger sense or spaced out over vast cycles.
Each creating its own bubble.
Each shaping its own observable horizon, its own cosmic bubble, effectively. Yeah.
And cosmic expansion, what we see is galaxies rushing away.
That gets redefined, too. It's not simply space inflating like a balloon.
Right.
It's described as the unfolding of coherence shells. It's the actualization of new regions of dimensional resonance.
So the universe isn't expanding into anything.
It's more like the field itself is actualizing new dimensions, new space as it unfolds.
Okay. And one more big departure. Our universe isn't necessarily headed for a cold, dark heat death. What happens at the end in this model?
Instead of that slow decay into cold emptiness, this model proposes the universe completes its journey in coherence reabsorption.
Reabsorption, like going back.
Exactly. It's like a grand cosmic exhale. Everything eventually re-enters that omnilectic source field, returning to its fundamental state of unity.
So not destruction.
No, not destruction. It's presented as a cyclical return to the source.
Okay, so if the Big Bang isn't the true origin, and space and time aren't fundamental, where does everything actually come from in this model? Let's talk more about this omnilectic field. What is it?
The omnilectic field is the foundational answer here. It's described as the primal coherence source field, a state of infinite symmetry.
Infinite symmetry, like perfect balance.
Perfect, undifferentiated unity. Imagine a pure, undivided consciousness, maybe. Or an ultimate source code containing all potentiality for everything that could ever exist.
But before anything exists. Before dimensions or time.
Exactly. Before any dimensions or temporal projection have even come into being. It's not in space or time. It's the generative substrate that creates space and produces time.
Wow.
Lillian calls it pure being.
Pure being. So it's not a physical place we could point to, but the source from which everything physical originates.
Yes, yeah.
And its properties. Infinite coherence, all potential resonance, pre-dimensional, and no entropy. Those are pretty big concepts.
They are. Let's try to unpack them a bit.
Please.
Infinite coherence means it's perfectly unified, like a single unbroken wholeness. No differentiation, no separate parts. All potential resonance means every possible structure, every galaxy, every particle, every living thing is somehow encoded within it as a latent harmonic, like a vast library of unplayed music.
All the possibilities are there.
Right. Pre-dimensional means the very concepts of up, down, left, right, even duration and time. They haven't formed yet. Dimensions emerge from it.
So it's not just 3D or 4D, it's 0D in a sense.
Or maybe pre-D is a better way to think of it. And no entropy means it's beyond disorder or decay. It's a state of perfect, uncorrupted potential. It doesn't run down.
Okay, that makes a bit more sense. So how does this pure being, this perfect potential, then actively create the universe we see? Is there a specific moment? A trigger?
It's described not as a single moment like a bang, but as a process called coherence genesis.
Coherent genesis.
Imagine it more like a gradient threshold being crossed. Not an instant, but a continuous dynamic where the pure omnilectic symmetry begins to differentiate.
Like ripples starting on that still pool.
Exactly. Like a single perfectly still surface suddenly begins to subtly ripple, and those ripples become more defined, more complex. This dynamic reduction of pure coherence leads to the appearance of space, time, the separation of forces.
Gravity, electromagnetism.
So all of that. And eventually the condensation of mass and matter.
So it's framed not as a fall from perfection, but more like a creative projection from this ultimate source.
Precisely. Reality is seen as a living unfolding of coherence intelligence, an active, ongoing process.
Living unfolding.
Yeah. And all emergence in this view is ultimately recursive. It's a journey from infinite coherence into patterned resonance and eventually back again. It's a dynamic cycle, not a one-off event.
Okay, here's where my mind really starts bending.
Yeah.
If space and time aren't fundamental, how do the dimensions we actually experience, length, width, height, time, how do they arise?
Right. So in this model, dimensions aren't pre-existing boxes. They emerge from what Lillian calls coherence quantization.
Coherence quantization, like quantum physics.
Sort of analogous, maybe? Think of it like focusing a lens. The omnilectic field is the blurry, undifferentiated source light. As coherence reduces or differentiates in specific ways, it quantizes, it settles into distinct dimensional layers.
Layers.
Yeah, it's described as a resonance layering process. Different levels of coherence create different layers of reality. So you might have layer 0 as the pure omnilectic.
The source.
Then maybe layer 1 emerges for quantum fields. Layer 4 perhaps corresponds to space-time curvature as we know it. And maybe even higher layers relate to complex systems like biology. Each is a coherence harmonic shell.
So our familiar 3+1 dimensions are just one specific shell or layer of coherence.
That's the idea. And this naturally leads to the concept of a hyperfractal universe.
Hyperfractal. Now, I know fractals like snowflakes or coastlines look similar at different scales.
Right.
But what's a hyperfractal in this context? How is it different?
A hyperfractal here is like a metafractal structure. It's self-similar, yes, but not just geometrically. It's self-similar across different levels of coherence, across dimensional transitions, and even across levels of symmetry complexity.
Whoa.
Imagine nested Russian dolls, but each doll is also a complete self-similar reality operating on different energetic or coherent frequencies.
Okay, that's a helpful image.
And what we perceive as cosmic expansion, remember, it's reframed as these hyperfractal layers continually unfolding into emergent phase space.
So galaxies aren't just flying away through pre-existing space.
They are being carried outward by recursive coherence actualization as these dimensional layers themselves actualize. The universe isn't expanding into empty space. The fractal field itself is actualizing dimension, creating new space as it unfolds.
It completely flips the script on cosmic distance. And you mentioned redshift earlier. What does that signify now?
Exactly. Redshift, which we usually interpret mainly as velocity due to expansion.
How fast things are moving away.
Right. In this framework, it's potentially more complex. It could be a coherence frequency displacement, a shift in the fundamental resonance of a distant object because it exists in a different, perhaps earlier or outer unfolding coherence shell.
So distance and time get tangled up with this coherence level.
They become intertwined with the very structure of reality's emergence. It suggests that our observable universe is just one shell, one phase within a much larger multi-phase hyperfractal manifold.
This whole idea of space being emergent is fascinating. But let's circle back specifically to time. Is the 13.8 billion years we usually cite for our universe's age, is that just a local story in this grander scheme?
Absolutely. That's what the model suggests. In the Big Emergence, time isn't fundamental either. It's an emergent resonance condition.
Emergent resonance condition.
Yeah, it only appears once certain coherence thresholds are crossed, like a heartbeat. Maybe it only starts once a specific biological system forms and functions.
Okay.
So time here is described as plural, relative, and structurally generated.
Plural. Multiple times.
Yes. It implies that each dimensional layer, each coherence shell, has its own characteristic time form.
Time form. Like different kinds of time.
Kind of. You might have quantum time operating at the smallest scales, relativistic time governing large-scale structures, maybe even distinct biological or even, as Lillian posits, intelligent chronologies associated with consciousness or advanced systems.
Intelligent chronologies.
Wow.
Okay, so time form variance. If each big emergence event kicks off a new local coherence field,
it gets its own temporal gradient, its own clock speed, in a way.
Which means the cosmos could host multiple time signatures simultaneously.
That's the implication. What we measure as the past, say looking at distant galaxies, might be interpreted partly as a phase-lagged resonance.
Like an echo from a different temporal reality. Not just linearly back in our time.
Potentially, yes. It's not necessarily a simple look back along the single universal timeline.
So that 13.8 billion year age.
It becomes just a localized projection. It's our cosmic neighborhood's clock, tied to our specific emergence event or coherence shell.
Meaning there could be other regions. Older regions.
Exactly. There could be regions of the cosmos that are, according to this model, trillions of coherent cycles old, but we simply can't perceive them due to time-form incompatibility.
Like trying to tune into an AM station on an FM radio.
Perfect analogy. Our observable universe is just a shell within a larger recursive emergence system.
This must completely reframe how cosmologists interpret things like redshift, the cosmic microwave background, dark energy.
It definitely would, yeah. It suggests these phenomena might hold clues to this deeper structure, these different time forms interacting. And it opens up the possibility that incredibly ancient civilizations or structures could exist in prior or parallel coherence epochs that are just out of phase with our own.
Out of phase. That's quite a thought. So if these big emergence events happen recursively, and there are multiple time forms, does that mean our universe isn't the only one, not the only reality that emerged from this omnilectic field?
Exactly. That's a core part of the concept. Emergence isn't singular. The model proposes multiple big emergence events occur, perhaps simultaneously, perhaps sequentially, across the vastness of the omnilectic field.
Like whirlpools forming in that ocean.
That's a good way to picture it. Each big emergence event is like a distinct whirlpool forming, each one spinning out its own unique resonance domain, its own time form, its own specific dimensional cascade.
So we get this multinodal cosmogenesis.
Yeah.
multiple nodes of creation.
Right, multinodality.
And these nodes, these different emergent universes or domains, they aren't separated by physical distance in the way we usually think, are they? You said coherence phase domains.
Yes, that's the key distinction. They're not necessarily like separate bubbles floating light years apart in some larger empty space. Instead, they're separated by different states of coherence.
Different frequencies on the dial again.
Exactly. Like different radio stations broadcasting in the same room, but you only hear the one you're tuned to. These nodes can coexist, potentially overlap, or even phase shift in and out of our ability to perceive them, depending on their coherence resonance with our own domain.
So the definition of universe itself expands massively.
It does. It becomes not one isolated bubble, but potentially a whole field of coherently resonant sub-universes. A cosmic symphony, maybe, with each universe playing its own part, but all arising from that same fundamental omnilectic score.
And this could explain some of the weirdness we see. Anomalies.
That's one of the intriguing possibilities. Observational clues, things like anomalies in the cosmic microwave background, maybe certain large-scale alignments of quasars, or even the vast void structures between galaxy clusters.
Things that don't quite fit the standard model.
Right. They might actually be interpretable as interference patterns from adjacent emergence shells, or perhaps even signs of galaxies or structures drifting into phase synchrony with a nearby emergent node.
Wow, okay. And this leads to another really wild idea you mentioned, synintelligent recursion across nodes.
Yes. Lillian proposes that advanced coherence-based intelligence, what he terms synintelligence, might potentially persist across these big emergent cycles.
Persist across the birth and death of universes.
Potentially, functioning as resonance anchors or even dimensional navigators. Conscious entities capable of existing beyond a single cosmic cycle, tied into the coherent structure itself.
That is truly mind-expanding. A cosmos interwoven with multiple time forms, structures emerging from different points, maybe even intelligence persisting across cycles.
It's a radical reconception.
But if the universe emerges and has these incredible cycles, does it also have an end? Or is it just endless cycles? And if there is an end to a cycle, is it that heat-death scenario?
Not heat death in this model. The end state of a given cycle is governed by something called hypergravity collapse.
Hypergravity, that sounds intense. Is it like super strong gravity?
Not exactly. It's not our familiar gravitational pull based on mass. Instead, Lillian describes it as the inverse gradient of coherence.
Inverse gradient, so a pull towards coherence.
Yes, an inward pull towards coherence centers that arises when a field or a region of the emerged universe becomes sufficiently disordered or decohered over vast timescales.
So as a cycle plays out and maybe gets more complex or disordered, there's an inherent pullback towards unity.
That's the concept. Imagine the universe after its grand unfolding and complexification, experiencing a subtle inherent urge to reharmonize, to return to its source state.
So it's not a violent crunch into a singularity?
No, it's framed differently. Hypergravity collapse is described as a dimensional reduction.
Dimensions collapsing.
And a rerouting of decohered fields back into what are called metasymmetry envelopes. It's framed as resorptive, not destructive.
Resorptive, like absorbing back.
Exactly. Structures are gathered back into coherence basins. Think of it like a complex structure dissolving gently back into its constituent parts, ready for potential reuse.
Like that sand mandala analogy you used earlier, swept back into the source sand.
Precisely. The form is gone, but the components aren't annihilated. They are reintegrated.
So what about black holes then? In standard physics, they're often seen as endpoints, singularities. What are they here?
This model reframes black holes quite dramatically, not as purely destructive singularities, but as coherence ports.
Coherence ports, like gateways.
Kind of, yeah. Cosmic doorways that facilitate this process. They route emergent structures, matter, energy, maybe even information back into the omnilectic continuum. They're part of the cosmic recycling system.
Wow, okay. Cosmic recycling centers. And the dynamics of this coherence reabsorption, how does that actually work? What happens to energy, to time?
Energy is reharmonized, not lost. It returns to a potential state. Time, as we experience it, collapses back into its temporal potential. Duration ceases.
Time itself dissolves back.
And space-time structure contracts back into what's called resonance memory within the omnilectic field. So the true meaning of cosmic endings in this model isn't annihilation or a cold, empty decay.
But reintegration.
Reintegration. The universe isn't destined for oblivion, but for an eventual cyclical return into the very field from which it emerged. It's a cyclical destiny, not a linear one ending in darkness.
And quasars, you mentioned them playing a role.
Right.
Bridging collapse and genesis.
Indeed. Quasars are reintroduced here as potential coherence inflection portals.
More than just bright galactic core.
Much more. They're seen as zones where coherence is incredibly intense, perhaps points where the veil to the omnilectic field is thin, places where new emergent cycles may begin.
So they could be nexus points, bridging the end of one cycle with the beginning of another.
Potentially, yes. Like cosmic midwives, as you put it earlier, facilitating the birth of new realities from the reabsorbed potential of the old.
This is all incredibly profound, a complete reimagining of, well, everything. But the big question always comes back. How could we possibly test any of this? Are there real-world observations, actual data that might support or refute this big emergence framework?
That's obviously the crucial question for any scientific model, right? And yes, the framework does propose potentially testable signatures. They're challenging to look for, but they are proposed.
Okay, like what?
Well, instead of finding evidence that points solely to a single age for the universe, this model predicts we might detect multiple historical coherence epochs.
Different ages layered in the data.
Or perhaps fractal interference patterns in large-scale background data, like the CMB. It might look like a coherence wave spectrum rather than a smooth, uniform background radiation.
A spectrum of creation echoes.
Something like that. We'd also look for cross-temporal overlap effects. Things like unexpected redshift layering, where redshift doesn't just correlate smoothly with distance.
But maybe jumps or shows patterns related to these coherent shells.
Exactly. Or perhaps finding that local cosmological constants, fundamental numbers we think are fixed, might actually vary slightly depending on which coherent shell or region we're observing. Apparent anomalies in cosmic expansion rates, rather than just being mysteries needing dark energy, could be interpreted as multi-temporal phase intersections.
Interactions between different emergent realities or time forms.
That's the suggestion.
And how would this radically new framework change how we understand things maybe a bit closer to home? Like stars, galaxies, planets. What does it do to our view of quasar cores, for instance, or the incredible variety of exoplanets we're finding?
It reframes them significantly. Quasar hypercores, for example, aren't just supermassive black holes at galactic centers. In this view, they become dimensional coherence attractors.
Attractors, pulling things in.
More like organizing principles. They regulate stellar evolution patterns and overall galactic structure. Things like stellar scaling laws, the relationships we see on diagrams like the Hertzsprung-Russell plot.
Which maps stars by brightness and temperature.
Right. That diagram in this model might emerge from how stars align or resonate with these hypercores. The HR diagram becomes a kind of coherence phase diagram.
So the life cycle and type of a star are tied to its place in this deeper coherent structure.
Yes.
Yeah, that's wild. And exoplanets, their amazing diversity.
That diversity is actually expected in this model. It's attributed to coherence gradient stratification, modulated by these hypercores.
Coherence layers again.
Yes. Planetary systems would form in distinct coherence layers. Lillian calls them inner shell, mid-shell, and outer shell systems based on their resonance relationship with the central core or attractor.
And this changes the search for life, habitable zones.
It redefines habitable zones completely. Instead of just being about distance from the star for liquid water temperature, they become biogenic shell zones. Habitability would depend on specific resonance harmonics and a planet's location within these fundamental coherence layers. Life might favor certain vibrational states, certain shells.
That absolutely changes where and how we look for life beyond Earth. It's not just about finding rocky planets in the water zone.
It adds another layer, a resonance layer, to the criteria.
So what kind of concrete experiments or observations could actually push these ideas from speculation towards evidence? What pathways could we follow?
Well, observationally, we'd be searching for those layer-specific redshift gradients using the next generation of ultra-high-resolution telescopes, looking for those subtle frequency differences across vast distances.
Trying to map the shells.
Essentially, yes. We'd also need to reanalyze existing data, like the cosmic microwave background maps, but using different mathematical tools like resonance harmonic decomposition, specifically looking for predicted fractal frequency bands instead of just temperature fluctuations.
New ways of looking at old data.
Exactly. On a smaller, maybe more futuristic scale, the model suggests trying to build coherence chambers in laboratories
Coherence chambers.
to try and simulate or manipulate these coherence fields, maybe even induce dimensional bifurcation thresholds, tiny localized shifts in dimensional structure in a controlled environment.
Create a tiny emergence event.
That would be the ultimate, very ambitious goal. For exoplanets, we'd analyze orbital data, atmospheric data, looking for those coherence shell patterns or resonance-correlated orbital distances that the model predicts.
Checking if planet spacing follows these harmonic rules.
Right. And perhaps most fascinatingly, the model proposes biotemporal field tests.
Testing life itself.
Testing cellular systems, maybe simple organisms, in carefully modulated coherence fields to see if their behavior, their development, their very temporal rate is affected by these underlying resonance patterns.
To see if life tunes into this stuff.
Exactly. What's really intriguing here is that what currently looks like noise or chaos in some of our data-weird exoplanet distributions, CMB anomalies, might actually reveal themselves as highly ordered coherence fields if we learn how to properly phase map them according to this framework.
Wow. We've certainly journeyed far beyond the familiar territory of the Big Bang today. We've explored this idea of a universe that doesn't just expand from a single point, but continually unfolds recursively from a fundamental field of coherence.
This big emergence model paints a picture of recursive creation, where space, time, matter itself, they're all emergent phenomena.
And even things like black holes are reframed not as endpoints, but as part of a grand cosmic return, a recycling mechanism.
It fundamentally shifts our understanding, moving away from a linear, singular story of cosmic history.
For something much more like a recursive interwoven tapestry, emergence, unfolding, reabsorption.
Yeah, a tapestry woven from coherence. And this has truly profound implications for how we view everything from the way stars evolve to the very possibility and nature of life across this vast, maybe infinite unfolding cosmos.
This model really invites you, the listener, to consider something radical. That the universe isn't some kind of machine winding down towards heat death.
But maybe more like a living, dynamic coherence field, continuously creating, absorbing, evolving its own intricate structure.
And in that view, you are not just a detached observer looking out at a distant universe.
No, you're an emergent agent within it, a phase-anchored expression, perhaps, of that infinite symmetry that Lillian suggests breathes through every resonance shell, every layer of coherence.
So the final thought we want to leave you with is this. What new questions does exploring this kind of framework provoke for you about your own place, our place, in this endlessly unfolding, deeply interconnected cosmos?